What if the history of the world is nothing more than a well-sold fairy tale? A story stitched together so poorly that the moment you pull a single thread, the whole thing unravels. Take the famous image of a Spartan warrior. We see them in heavy metal helmets, wielding iron swords, yet wearing light sandals. It looks impressive. But ask yourself one simple question. Where did they get the metal? To melt iron for those helmets, you need a container that can withstand thousands of degrees. A container made of an even stronger metal. Did they dig ore out of the ground with sticks? Did they build high-temperature furnaces without bricks? This paradox is just the tip of the iceberg. Because when you look at the impossible foundations of our cities, the fake artifacts in our museums, and the silence of our history books, you realize one terrifying truth. We have been lied to our entire lives. The real questions begin when we stop looking at the history books and start looking at the concrete beneath our feet, the very foundation of our civilization. Our cities. Historians offer us two lazy scenarios for how ancient cities appeared. The first is the evolution theory, that a city is just a village that got big. A chaotic cluster of huts built by settlers eventually grew into Rome or Paris. The second scenario is even more absurd, the mass migration. Imagine a crowd of peasants, monks, and warriors in simple shoes, wandering out of nowhere, driven by some unknown purpose. They stop in an empty field and decide to build a metropolis, complete with a massive cathedral reaching for the sky and a grand theater on the main square. It's as if civilization was created solely for praying and watching plays. But hold on a second. If cities naturally grow from villages, why don't we see this happening today? A modern village can expand 10 times over, but it remains just a large village. It never transforms into a city. Why? Because there is a fundamental, insurmountable wall separating the two. That wall is sewage. A city isn't just a collection of houses. It is a machine. And the sewer system is its circulatory system. It is a complex engineering network that must be designed and laid before the first stone is placed above ground. You cannot take a sprawling, chaotic village and suddenly shove a centralized drainage system underneath it. It's impossible. This network must be laid on empty ground, according to a master plan. And this is where the official history collapses. To create a master plan, you need more than a stick in the sand or dye on an animal hide. You need precision. You need, at the very least, paper and a pencil. We take these things for granted, but do you realize that the manufacturing of a simple pencil involves 86 distinct industrial operations? It requires complex machinery and chemical processes. But let's pretend they miraculously found paper and pencils. Then, the real nightmare begins. To build a city, you need topographic surveys. You need to drill wells, analyze soil samples, and calculate groundwater levels. This requires sophisticated drilling equipment and laboratory tools. Most importantly, it requires specialists. You need engineers with higher education, geologists and surveyors, not illiterate peasants working for food and the lash. So, we are left with a terrifying conclusion. Even to lay the simplest foundation of an ancient city required a level of technology that, according to history, shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. If the hidden infrastructure beneath the ground is impossible, look up at what rises above it. Look at the medieval castles and Gothic cathedrals. These are not just buildings, they are symphonies of stone. They have stood for centuries, surviving wars, earthquakes, and time itself. And yet, official history tells us, without a hint of embarrassment, that these architectural masterpieces were built by serfs. We are asked to believe that illiterate people, working for food and the fear of the lash, laid walls with perfect, seamless masonry. Masonry that shows no cracks or distortions even after 1,000 years. Think about the physics. How did they calculate the complex vaults and arches that distribute colossal weight with surgical precision? That requires advanced mathematics and material science. How did they lift multi-ton stone blocks to dizzying heights using only rotten ropes and wooden pulleys? Today we need powerful tower cranes for that work. Yet we are told it was done by hand. Then there is the timeline. We are told that a cathedral built over 200 or 300 years is normal. But think about the logistics. Imagine a project lasting 3 centuries. The original architects would be long dead. How did their great-grandchildren, without detailed blueprints or modern data storage, continue the work with millimeter-perfect accuracy? It is a logistical impossibility. This entire picture collapses under the slightest pressure. On one hand, we see brilliant structures impossible for their time. On the other, we are told fairy tales about peasants with wooden shovels. But the doubts don't stop at the buildings. They get even louder when you look at the objects you can hold in your hands. Recently, I visited a local history museum during a renovation. Some display cases were open, and for a brief moment, the barrier between history and reality was gone. I took a risk. I stepped closer and picked up a knight's helmet and a sword. What I felt in that moment shattered another layer of the illusion. The knight's helmet was a crudely made metal bucket with slits. It weighed at least 25 pounds. I can tell you with full confidence, just keeping this thing on your head would be torture. Fighting in it, maneuvering, breathing, impossible. A single blow to a helmet that heavy wouldn't just cause a concussion. The whiplash would snap your cervical vertebrae. Then I picked up the sword. It had never been sharpened. The blade was rounded, nearly 5 millimeters thick along the edge. You couldn't cut butter with it, let alone an enemy. It wasn't a weapon, it was a heavy metal blank mimicking the shape of a sword. At best, it was a clumsy club. When you look at the real weapons behind the glass, the gold-plated hilts, the jewel-encrusted cannons, you have to ask, what does this jewelry have to do with war? In battle, you need speed, lightness, and reliability. You don't need gold filigree. It leads to a disturbing thought. Were these artifacts made retroactively? Were they created in a workshop much later, just to fill museums and say, look, this is antiquity? Because the weapons are toys, the armor is a prop. And if the artifacts are fake, maybe the events they represent are just fantasies too. When the buildings are impossible and the artifacts are fake, the last bastion of history is the written word, the chronicles. But upon closer inspection, these texts turn out to be the most fantastical element of all. You read descriptions of events happening thousands of miles away, written as if the author was there. Yet, this was an era where the speed of information was limited by the endurance of a horse. No more than 60 miles a day, and that's assuming you had a horse and a road. 90% of the population had neither. Then there are the wars. In the books, it seems so simple. Alexander the Great marches his phalanxes across deserts and mountains to conquer India. Napoleon walks all the way to Moscow. But ask any modern military logistician, and they will tell you this is pure fiction. How do you supply an army of hundreds of thousands of men and horses with food and water for months in hostile territory? Even with trucks and aircraft, this is a nightmare today. Yet we are asked to believe it was done with ox-drawn carts. Or take the conquistadors. We are told that a few hundred men from Spain sailed on flimsy wooden ships to South America and conquered a continent of millions. And they didn't just conquer it. They supposedly built cities and taught an entire population to speak Spanish. Think about the cargo capacity of a wooden ship. To transport enough people, tools, and supplies to build a civilization halfway around the world is mathematically impossible. It is easy to conquer the world on the pages of a book where there is no friction, no fatigue, and no hunger. but the real world is rough and unyielding. This creates a strange, almost schizophrenic picture of our reality. Look around you. Everything in our world is divided into two distinct categories. On one side, we have the ancient world. Majestic cathedrals, breathtaking sculptures, classical music, and architecture filled with soul and harmony. On the other side, we have our world, the utilitarian, tasteless, gray, concrete boxes we live in. Soulless mass production. Why is there such a chasm between the two? We are told we forgot the technology. We are told Leonardo da Vinci had secrets that modern science, with all its lasers and chemistry, cannot replicate. But this defies the logic of progress. If we have advanced so far in science, why have we degraded so much in aesthetics and durability? We don't build Gothic cathedrals. We build landfills. To blame this on lost technology is to turn a blind eye to the truth. The contradiction is so massive that it forces us to consider a terrifying possibility. What if these two worlds are not connected at all? What if we are not the descendants of the geniuses who built the ancient palaces? What if our world functions like a computer that periodically resets? Imagine the Earth is a system that updates itself. When a reboot happens, everything temporary turns to dust. But the structures of a higher order, the cathedrals, the palaces, remain because they were not built by us. They reappear after every reset, pristine and immortal. We simply find them, move in like squatters, and invent a fake history to explain how we built them. This brings us to the ultimate philosophical question. If this world is a simulation that resets, why was it created at all? Most people believe the purpose of life is happiness. But look around. Why is human history a ceaseless chain of suffering, war, and injustice? Popular culture tells us it's because of evil forces, reptilians, the Matrix, or secret societies holding us down. They say if we defeated them, we would have paradise. But let's play that out. Imagine a world with no struggle, unlimited resources, eternal health, absolute freedom. What would happen? Human nature is predictable. We would not become enlightened. We would degrade. We would drown in pleasure, gluttony, and laziness. The spirit would rot. No, this world is not a resort. It is a gymnasium. It is a proving ground for souls. We are here not to enjoy ourselves, but to be tested, to choose between good and evil under pressure. As the saying goes, true good is often perceived as absolute evil. Perhaps the hardships we face are actually the training machines designed to make us stronger. There is a specific word for this place in the original theory, a word we use every day without knowing its true meaning. Polygon. To us, a polygon is just a shape in geometry class, but the etymology hides a darker secret. It comes from the Greek poly, meaning many, and gonia, meaning angle, a many-angled figure. Why does that matter? Because in sacred texts, from the Bible to the Vedas to Buddhism, the angle, or corner, is almost always a symbol of punishment and limitation. In the Bible, sinners are cast into outer darkness, often translated as a dark corner. In Vedic texts, the god Shiva is confined in a shining corner to stop his dance of destruction. In Buddhism, the word for hell, naraka, traces back to roots meaning the corner below. Across thousands of years and miles, the corner is not just geometry. It is a prison, a spiritual cage designed to limit our power. Ancient traditions speak of the divine angle, claiming that we were once connected to specific angles of divinity, possessing abilities we can no longer even imagine. But now, we are trapped in the polygon. So look at the path we have traveled today. It started with a simple question about Spartan sandals. It led us to the impossible sewers of ancient cities, up to the miraculous Gothic cathedrals, and through the fake artifacts in our museums. We have realized that the official history is a dam holding back the truth. It is a script written to make us believe we are powerless descendants of apes, evolving slowly on a rock spinning through space. It is a lie designed to keep us from asking the one question that matters: who are we really? The escape from the polygon does not begin with storming the walls. It begins with the awakening of your mind. It begins when you stop accepting the fairy tale and start trusting your own eyes. If you are ready to peel back the next layer of this illusion, you know what to do. Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The algorithm tries to hide these truths, so your like and comment are the only way to keep this signal alive. Share this video with someone who is ready to wake up. We are just getting started.